And now for something entirely different. Hello everyone and welcome to an experimental video. This is PS1 Music Talk, where I try to discuss PS1 music as best as I can with barely any music knowledge. Today we'll look at the boss battle theme of the JRPG Chrono Cross. The track is titled Between Life and Death, but it's also known as Brink of Death. It's about 2 minutes and 30 seconds long, but the main melody is about half the track length. It's composed by Yasunori Mitsuda, who handled the OST for the game. An interesting detail is that the OST was incorporated with a lot of old world cultural influences and sound, something the boss battle theme has up front. I describe the track as one that slowly builds dread, urgent sounding, and assertive. Really apt since this is the boss fight music. And I might be reading too much into this, but for me, the track is able to conjure this image of the natural progress of a fight. From the start of the encounter to the making plans on the fly, then the climax, and finally the victory where the track ends, or oh shit, where the track loops again because the battle isn't done. Moving on, I was able to get a MIDI version of the track. I'll still use the official one from time to time, but the former is just better for pointing stuff out. I hope you can bear with me on this one. Let's start with the very quick intro, which introduces a lot of recurring elements in the track. It starts with a cymbal crash, a group of percussions, and some bass instruments. The crash cymbals is interesting as it acts as a sign to the start of certain tunes for the entirety of the track. The bass drums have this simple rhythm which consistently adds heaviness and density, like an oomph to the sound. There's the hand drums, which provide a tropical or tribal sound, and along with it in the MIDI version are the other percussions that have high tone-like sounds. It adds more color to the drum beats and oddly enough makes the track seem fast when it's really not. Lastly, there's the bass guitar, which is kinda subtle, but when you hear it, you hear this groovy sound despite having a simple sound pattern. With that out of the way, let's start with the first section, which begins with some harmonizing synths that immediately change plans after. The main melody is played by string instruments, producing a kind of thin sound. However, it's given some depth or thickness by high synths that's playing the same notes and pattern. Both track plays notes in quick durations, making them sound separate and in your face, if that makes sense. The low synths are harmonizing with the two aforementioned instruments, playing longer notes to fill in the spaces left behind by the quick burst of the main melody. This makes it sound unified, like they're being tied together by the low synths, even though we can hear the spaces in between the notes of the main tune. Going back to the start, after the synths enter, a piano plays this low sounding tune. It only plays at this section of the track. Like the bass guitar, it also has a nifty melody, but I'd argue it's more bouncy sounding since the notes playfully ascend and descend pitch one after the other. And speaking of playful, the strings also have this whimsical yet alarming sound arrangement of notes that play after a few sets of those quick bursts of notes. We move on to the second part, which is a bit short. It has this sort of foreboding tone thanks to the low synths and how the strings and the main melody abandon its staccato-like articulation. The low synths added an extra note to the mix, giving the sound more depth. It also has a slow escalation in pitch followed by a lower pitch near the end. It's this that gives that feeling of apprehension. The high synths are more of a subtle backing this time, making the sound lose a bit of edge. Third part is a continuation of the previous thanks to the low synths, but I'm making it its own thing for the sake of convenience. The low synths continue to have a larger presence, slowly ascending in pitch and then going down afterwards. It makes the track sound like a climax with a proper build-up and slow falling action. The strings have this sound that is a combination of the first and second section, again returning that sound of urgency. And as an added touch, the hand drums is played with a peculiar beat that it adds flavor and uniqueness to this section. We're now in the final section of the track, which I'll be dividing up again for the sake of ease of discussion. The first part follows up from the slow descent of the low synths. A few instruments stop playing. Those that are still present play a simpler tone in longer durations. This gives the section this momentary stillness or relaxation. But the low synths hasn't stopped in its sound of apprehension. There's also the addition of wind instruments that play the whimsical part. But despite how playful it seems, it's also adding to the eerie sound stillness this part conjures. And lastly, the second part of the final section where things start to pick up again. Quiet instruments from before are once again played. There's this smooth roll-off done by the synths and strings that plays for a long duration. It's accompanied by the shouting, which acts as a form of build-up. All of these let the part swimmingly transition and loop back to the first part of the track. This track is arguably simple, but the cool use of the instruments plus a few details here and there gives the track personality. It's not just the usual boss battle music we hear that's all epic sounding. And I think it helps in this case because you don't want to have battle music that's tiring to listen to. Literally a good portion of a JRPG are battles. Having these small sections in the track makes it not boring. and they transition so well from one part to the other that it makes the track feel whole instead of having sections that overwhelm others. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey guys, what do you think of this video type? I admit few things could be handled better, but I would still love to hear your thoughts, so please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. If you like what you saw, please consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. I want to reach 100 subs before we reach the second half of the year, so I hope you can help me on that. I have a Twitter at KenAthomos if you want further updates, or if you want to hear me ramble. There's also a Ko-fi page if you want to further support the channel. Links are in the description. Take care!